Hi, I'm Ryan O'Connor, coordinator here in the Northeast, and I'm going to show you today how to load a 6 1/4 EM mule shoe sub. Pretty much this process will be the same for 4 3/4, 6 1/4, and 6 3/4 and 8 inch. So as we get started, I'll just get you to come over here, Mr. Cochran. First, before you load your sleeve, you want to inspect it. Make sure there's no major bumps or abrasions or chips or anything like that. As we can tell, this one is pretty much brand new. And the collar, this is actually called the collar. This is the sleeve and this is the collar. Still got the sticker on it, so obviously it's very new. You can also tell by looking at this edge, which looks good. Here's one that's worn down pretty bad, and you can feel the bevel in it. You definitely wouldn't want to run this kind of sleeve, and you'd have to replace the collar, which actually unscrews here. The next thing we need to do is put in a key. There is only one key that fits this type of sleeve. This is a 6 1/4 key to align your stinger once it inserts. So you slap her in there, and you just look inside, and you'll notice that it can only go down so far. If you put the wrong key in, you'll notice a 4 3/4 key wouldn't go far enough, and a 6 3/4 key would go too far. So usually if you're by yourself, I usually get a pressure blank or a gamma blank or a battery barrel, and that just helps you push the sleeve inside the sub. We'll go over here. You guys aren't going to have this handy dandy little table here, which is kind of too high, but I got mine nicely high sided, and I'm just going to slide it in ever so slowly. And so I got it lined up. I'm just going to keep my eye on it as I slowly start to slide the sleeve into place. See the pressure port entering now. One bolt hole, second bolt hole, third bolt hole. Just keep sliding it in. Stick your finger in there just to make sure they're all aligned. Once everything's lined up, then you go get the rest of your pieces. There's your 3 bolt holes all lined up and your pressure port. Okay, now we're ready to go. Our sleeve's in place, and we're going to start by always inserting your pressure port first. It's the first thing that has to go in. Don't put your bolts in first, or you'll never get this in. So it's imperative that after your sleeve has been inserted, you put the pressure port in first. And you can see that it has a fresh set of O-rings on all 4 of the spots where you can put the O-rings in. You also want to put some grease on this. So we'll take some grease. Any grease will do. Usually the DC 111 is usually you'll have lots of that on location. Oh, that's a little bit too much. I don't have to get crazy with it, like I just did. This is high temp grease. It's fine, so you don't hurt the O-rings. The way the pressure port goes in nice and easy. Alright. I'm gonna insert my extraction screw, pressure port extraction screw, inside here, which will help me hold on to it. So you always want to insert it this little hole pointing down, and obviously your extraction screw pointing up towards me. I'm gonna hammer it in. If you were to put your bolts in first, or even one bolt, there's a good chance that you'd never get that in. Next, we are going to load our mule shoe sub or meal shoe sleeve bolts. Sorry. You absolutely need this thrust washer on the bolt before you put it inside. If you don't have this thrust washer, fluid invasion will get inside the sub or vice versa, and you will wash out the meal shoe sub. Do not ever reuse these. Always use a fresh washer. You can reuse the bolts. You must clean the threads, make them look as good as this, but you have to use a new washer every time. Also make sure there's no washers left inside these holes. If you're servicing a sub, sometimes the bolt will come out but the washer will not. Make sure you get that washer out of there before you put a fresh one. You double up on washers, again, you're gonna have a washout problem. Always, before you put this in, you always have to put a nice line of Loctite on there. We'll go with blue 243 Loctite, or blue 242 is acceptable. You don't have to go crazy with this stuff, it's just going to make it harder to get them out. Just a nice line is all you need. Insert it in. You can break this ratchet off from your torque wrench and use that to help you. I just kind of go hand tight with that first one. I grab the next one, make sure I apply my thrust washer, and then put a nice coating of Loctite. Again, you can see I'm using new bolts. If you ever have to use bolts, you'll have a bunch of dried up Loctite left on the bolt, which is fine. Make sure you take a wire brush and clean it up real nice. I'm going to torque these bolts down later. I'm just hand tightening everything now. Not going to get carried away until everything is for sure going to fit. Again, the thrust washer, brand new. Nice coating of Loctite. None of these steps can be missed. None. If you don't do one of these steps and you go to run this sub, there's a good chance you will have a failure and we will have to trip for tools. It could possibly impact our reputation with that client. If you do not have any of these supplies, Loctite, thrust washers, any of these, you must call your coordinator immediately. And tighten these down. Next, what I'm going to do after those are in is I'm going to apply this. It's called a pressure port lock nut, and all that's going to do is hold that pressure port down in place. You also want to apply some Loctite to this bolt. This one you can be a little more liberal with the Loctite because there is no torque spec for this bolt. Alright. As you turn this bolt inside the threads, it is going to spread the Loctite nice and evenly. If you don't have one of these handy dandy tools, this is an 8mm Allen for that. I'm going to take that, I'm going to screw it in. Again, if you're doing some servicing in the field, make sure you clean your sub properly. Get the pressure washer, clean everything out real nice before you do any of this. Because all you're going to do is torque up on mud, ice, and all the rest. Basically, this is all you do. You put some nice hand tight on there, nice and hand tight. And again, that's why you want to be liberal with the Loctite, because the Loctite naturally adds more torque. without actually having to apply the torque. Next, what we do, and this is only for transportation and picking up tools, so your pressure port does not get all gummed up and plugged up. This is only for transporting and picking up tools. Once you are done seating your tool, you will take this plug out. If you do not take this little plug out, your pressure probe will not be able to receive bore annulus pressure. It's just a little protector screw. That's it. And it goes inside the locking screw. And again, there's no Loctite on this. You don't need to. And just give it a nice little hand tight. I guess I will mention the one exception with this little locking screw is if you weren't running pressure and you were only stinging the tools, you must leave that inside. If you are running pressure, you need to take this little plug out of there. Last but not least, now that that's all inserted, I am going to put the final torque on my mule shoe bolts. It's on the right way. Usually the back of the wrench is facing the front of the torque. Make sure it's torquing in the right direction. You have to set your torque wrench to 20 decanewton meters. 20 decanewton meters with no extension. If for some reason on location, if you need to put an extension on because you need to apply you need the extra leverage, then with an extension it would be 10 decanewton meters. So here I will get out my torque wrench set. I'm going to hold the sub. You might need somebody to help you out. It is a lot of torque. It's actually 200 Newton meters. In this instance, I probably could almost use an extension. I'm going to go on to my next bolt here, get them all kind of snugged up in unison, and then I'll go back until I feel the click of the torque wrench. Oh boy, gotta eat my Wheaties. There we go. Reset the torque wrench. Oh man. There we go. Last but not least, reset the torque wrench. There we go. Alright, in recap, I put the sleeve inside the sub, lined up all the bolts in the pressure port. I put the pressure port in first. Made sure the pressure port had O-rings, greased it, used the extraction screw, pounded it in with a hammer, made sure it was flush, put in the mule shoe bolts with the thrust washers and Loctite. Then I put the pressure port lock nut in, followed up with the little plug, torqued up all the bolts to spec. You now have a sub that is ready to run pressure. Thank you. Have a great day.